The first step in building an exemplary Audi Quattro for the street is to tear it completely apart. So a few months ago, we pulled all of the suspension off of our 1982 model, with plans of sending our core strut housings over to Germany so that H&R could build us a set of one-off coilovers. But today, we're going to shift gears and start over, first by taking a look at the Audi Quattro's younger brother, the Coupe Quattro and S2. This later, more revised car has a lot to offer, including all of its running gear for our Ur-Quattro. So let me tell you how I wound up with all of this stuff. Do you recognize this guy? Well, if you're into Audis, the answer's certainly yes, and unless you live under a rock, the answer's still probably yes. It's Brian Scotto, Chief Creative Officer over at Hoonigan. And more important than that, he's also an absolute Audi nut. He's got a fleet of these old cars, but the one that matters at the moment is his Coupe Quattro. Now, kind of like the Kardashians are famous for, well, not really doing anything, Brian's car is also famous for never being finished, at least up until recently when it was unveiled with its prior design widebody and a complete overhaul. It's a 17-year-long project that has helped cement Brian as one of the main figureheads of the Audi community. And he loves these cars through and through, not just the crazy ones, but the simple ones as well.
And I'd like to tell you the story about the myth of a man named Brian Scotto, the only human being on the planet that owns this and also owns this.
But truly loves this probably more.
Right.
Well,
In fact, his love for these cars is so infectious that I'm going to go on and give him credit for being the reason why Ken Block was also an Audi driver. However, the elephant in the room is that Brian is also a parts hoarder. Although it's quite surely an annoyance to everybody over at Hoonigan, I am eternally grateful for this fact, because it means that Brian has a lot of Audi parts that I might want. We did a little bit of horse trading for the parts that came out of my Quattro, and I wound up with the running gear out of one of his Coupe Quattro parts cars. So let's dive in and talk about why on earth I want to make the swap. As you guys know, the Audi Quattro is a fickle beast. It's front heavy thanks to the fact that the engine is entirely in front of the front wheel centerline. But despite that fact, it still has a bit of handling prowess. In fact, it was good enough that Audi didn't really make major revisions to the way the car drove, and instead, for its successor, the Audi Coupe Quattro, it received engineering changes that drastically improved serviceability. On top of that, parts for the Coupe Quattro are actually available, unlike the Ur-Quattro that I have. If we have all of the parts from the Coupe Quattro, from the subframes to the control arms to the knuckles and shocks, it will bolt into the Ur-Quattro, but we need all of it. And thankfully, Brian Scotto has all of it sitting around the Hoonigan headquarters. Or at least he did, and now it's in my shop and we're ready to tear it down so that we can rebuild it as good as new. As I've said in some of our previous Audi episodes, I'm more of a fabricator than I am a mechanic, and I've never worked on any Audi prior to this. So figuring out how everything goes together, or in this case comes apart, has been a bit of a process of trial and error. In today's case, our goal is to disassemble everything, because I want new bushings, new bearings, new ball joints, and everything in between. I want to replace everything that could be considered a service item on these subframes, and for everything that's not, I want to completely refinish, with fresh powder coating to make it as good as new. The first Audiism, if you will, that I encountered while disassembling these parts was the fact that the bolts that hold the shock on can't be removed unless you also remove the brake caliper. Now, this could easily be avoided if the bolts had just been installed the other direction, and maybe somebody working on this car in the past just installed them incorrectly. So let's give Audi the benefit of the doubt and assume that they're smarter than this, and this is someone else's mistake. With the struts removed from each side, I turned my attention to the lower ball joints, which use a bolt to hold them into place. In an ideal world, these would probably just drop out with the bolt removed, but they didn't, so I'm whipping out this tool that I haven't used in ages. It's appropriately called a steering knuckle spreader, and it's rather ingenious in the way that it works. It uses studs to fit into the original bolt holes, and then adjusts in order to clamp the entire piece apart. It's kind of hard to explain without taking several minutes to do it, so let me just show you how it actually works on the knuckle. The pegs hold the tool in place and allow the wedged tip to drive the entire knuckle apart. And with that, the ball joint just falls right out. With the sway bar and the engine mounts removed, we're only left with the control arms themselves. On a rusty car, I have to imagine that removing these would be an utter nightmare, because access to the inner nut isn't what I would call easy. It's enough room to fit a wrench, but it's at a bit of a tough angle, and there's not quite enough room to fit a socket in place, so you might be in trouble if you really needed to get a lot of purchase on one of the fasteners. In my case, though, everything came apart exactly as one would hope, and with both control arms removed, the front subframe is completely disassembled. We're going to replace the ball joint units at the end of the control arms, and I want to refinish the control arms themselves, so they too need to come apart. While replacing the ball joints is a very simple affair, replacing the bushings is anything but. My initial optimism had me hoping that a bit of heat and a persuasive hammer would do the trick, that I could simply tap these things out and call this project done. But I tried a few different methods and got absolutely nowhere. As anticipated, the internet suggests I should drill out the rubber and then sawzall the metal sleeve. But I've played that game on other control arms, and instead of doing that 8 times over, I'd rather just spend $100 or so and buy the specialty tool, and we'll save this one for the next episode. I moved on to the next aspect of front-end disassembly, which was the front hubs. The brake dust shields on all 4 corners of the Coupe Quattro suspension were completely mangled, so those are going directly in the trash. I also need new wheel speed sensors, which surprisingly aren't bolted into place. They're just a snug press fit. All that's left are the hubs and bearings. And on the note of hubs, I've got to make a decision. The car is currently a 4x108 lug pattern, which is, well, rather unique. I'm considering re-drilling these hubs to 4x100 to give myself more wheel options, or I could 5-lug swap to S2 components. But I'll decide all of that later. Thankfully, the hubs pressed right out of all 4 corners. There was almost no effort involved. The bearings, on the other hand, didn't want to play ball. Even with the persuasion of heat, I couldn't get the bearings to press out of the knuckles. My 5-ton arbor press can output 10,000 pounds of force with relative ease, and if you yank on it, it'll far surpass that, and even still, this stuff didn't want to budge. If you look closely, you can even see the inch-thick piece of steel underneath it flexing. So we'll save those control arm bushings and the wheel bearings for the next episode, and we'll go on and turn our attention to the rear of the Coupe Quattro. And first, we need to remove the axles from the differential. There was a lot of CV grease built up in the heads of what I assumed were Allen bolts, but once I took a closer look, I realized I needed to find a specialty tool. I'm told this is called a triple star bit, and thankfully, my buddy Byron over at Likebow happened to have one in his toolbox that was just the right size. Intuition tells me that it's probably a terrible idea to use an impact with one of these bits, but my desire to get this project done won out, and thankfully, that didn't backfire. As always, if you're enjoying the episode and want to see more progress on the Audi as it nears completion, leave a like, or better yet, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Actions like those go a long way towards supporting the channel and helping it grow, and best of all, it's free. With both axles unbolted, it's time to remove the differential from the subframe itself. It's held in by 3 bolts, 1 at the rear and 2 in the front. One cool thing to note is the fact that the front diff mounts are different side to side. One is mounted to the top of the subframe, and the other is mounted underneath. This is clearly done with the torque applied from the differential in mind, and it must work pretty well given how much power these cars are capable of putting down to the ground. Perhaps it's to be expected of Audis, but unlike any BMW I've ever worked on, with the axle bolt removed, the axle slid right out of the hub without any fight whatsoever. Just like the front, the biggest fight in disassembling the rear was simply removing the rusty calipers from the rusty brake rotors. Once again, a screwdriver did the trick, but it's pretty clear at minimum these calipers will need a serious rebuild. While someone out there might say that it's worth turning these rotors down, they are headed straight for the trash. When the time comes, in their place, we'll install some nice vented and slotted rotors. Once again, I've flipped the subframe over so that we can remove the control arms, but unlike the front, the rear has toe links. It's really clear that if I wanted to, it'd be incredibly easy to add four-wheel steering to this car, and in fact, Audi actually built a four-wheel steering prototype of the original Quattro. But I think that's better left as a prototype. The ball joints for the toe links were by far the worst part of disassembly. Despite my best efforts, I simply could not get them to keep from spinning inside of the steering knuckle. Eventually, it was penetrating oil and heat that did the trick. The other side was a bit more cooperative until it came to actually removing the ball joint from the knuckle. I had used my favorite ball joint separator, and it came right out. Thankfully, that brings us to the last bit of disassembly. First is the diff mounts, and then once again the control arms on each side. We still have to worry about all of the bushings and the bearings that are still pressed into the hubs, but otherwise everything is disassembled and laid out on the shop floor. As said when we started, I had no idea how any of this stuff came apart, and I promise that I won't remember how any of it goes together here in a few months, so I bagged and labeled every single bolt that came out of these parts. Now after all of that, let me finally further explain why we're doing this suspension swap. Here we have our old strut and the new one side by side. And if we look at the old one, the one closer to us, you'll see that it's got this big cast steel structure on the end of it. It's an integrated knuckle and strut all in one unit. Now there's nothing inherently wrong with this design, although it is a bit heavy by modern standards. But the problem in our case is that because it's all one unit, if we want to turn this into a coilover, we're going to have to send it out to be modified. No one produces an aftermarket coilover with this gigantic cast piece of steel attached to it. On the other hand, if we look at our new strut and hub assembly, you'll notice that they are multiple pieces. The knuckle is bolted to the McPherson strut assembly, which means we don't have to send the entire assembly out to be modified. Because this strut assembly just has metal tabs that mount it to the knuckle, H&R is able to produce these along with the steering arm. And ultimately, that means that we can turn to our friends at H&R, and instead of ordering custom parts for an old Audi Quattro, we can simply order an off-the-shelf kit for an S2. If we look at the original control arms off of our Audi Quattro, you'll see that they are constructed of stamped steel. The control arms off of our Coupe Quattro, on the other hand, are forged steel units, and they are considerably stronger. While I don't imagine that we're likely to break either version, it's nice to have the peace of mind and the added availability of aftermarket bushings for the later model stuff. Brian was nice enough to include a differential with these parts, which is a part that I didn't even realize that I needed. Some of you may remember that when I bought our AAN donor engine, it also came with the differential that you see on the left. But it turns out, a few knowledgeable folks have told me this one won't fit in our car, although it does look extremely similar to the one that we're going to swap in its place. On the upside, the new one does still have a vacuum locker, which sounds like a whole lot of fun once this thing finally hits the dirt. Last but not least, there's a few other parts, most of which will get replaced, but I'd like to do a little bit of research and find out if there are some good big brake options for our current suspension setup. The Coupe Quattro brakes do look a lot bigger than the original Quattro brakes, but if there's a better option out there, I might just go for it. Now, another detail that I think is pretty sweet now that I've got all this stuff torn apart is the fact that the front subframe and the rear subframe are literally the same part. They use the engine mounts as diff mounts, The control arm mounts are the same. Literally, it's an identical piece, same exact stamping with a couple of small add-ons welded onto it like a diff mount for the back of it. Look at this. If we look in here where the original engine mount was, you can see all of kind of the stamping shapes and all of this kind of stuff. You get an idea of how all of the metal is shaped all the way through the entire part. With the understanding that this is the front subframe, we move to the rear, and it's literally the same part. 100% identical. The only changes that I can see that they've made is this diff mount welded to the top side here. We've got it sitting upside down. And the rear has toe link mounts versus sway bar mounts. It's literally the only difference. So at this point, there's only a few things left before I get all this stuff sent out and powder coated. I've got to get all of the bushings pressed out of the subframes, bushings pressed out of the control arms, and the hubs pressed out of the knuckles. So in terms of the knuckles, those will come out with a hydraulic press. I'm not too worried about it. We could cut our way through all of these bushings on the control arms, but there is a special tool for it, and instead of fighting with it for an entire afternoon, I'd rather just spend, $100 and have a tool so that when I need to do this again someday, I'm prepared for it. And then on the subframes, I haven't even tried dealing with it yet. I'm gonna worry about it later this afternoon or tomorrow. But otherwise, everything should be ready for pickup. We're gonna get it all powder coated. We're gonna put all new bushings in, new motor mounts, all that jazz. I'm gonna try to find a LSD unit for the differential, if that's even a thing. I gotta do some research, we'll figure out brakes. All in all, it's coming together. Once it all comes back from powder coating, I wanna get it back on the car ASAP, along with our H&R coilovers, so that I can measure for wheels and we can get some custom wheels ordered. That's high on the list, and we can put the car back on the ground and roll it around. And hopefully by that point, we'll be looking at all of our engine parts coming back. We'll have an engine to put together, and we'll get started on all of the fabrication for our full turbo system, everything like that. There's a lot of stuff to do. I am so excited about this project. I hope you guys are enjoying it. I know it's a departure from the Ferrari, but honestly, I can't even put into words how stoked I am to be working on it. It's just a blast. I'm having so much fun. It's something totally new and different for me, and I'm so eager to hear this engine. So that's what I'm working towards. I'm done rambling. I will cut this episode off here. Thank you guys as always for the support. I'll catch you guys later this week if everything goes according to plan. I'll see you then.